Get started. All right. So, hi, I'm Vincent Houghtaling, the administrative assistant at the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery, which is, along with my house in Regina, also on Treaty 4 territory. I'm a Master of Arts in Arts Leadership from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. Through that program, I worked in the development department at the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra and studied the interactions between major and planned gift fundraising and the succession planning process for artistic leadership. Since then, I've also worked doing grants administration for Sask Arts and contributed to gathering funds from a variety of sources in my current job in Moose Jaw. Today, we'll be talking about some of the different options you have in front of you to raise funds when your usual revenue streams are altered or dried up by circumstances beyond your control. We'll touch on some of the methods museums around the province and beyond have been using to great effect, and on some of the ways you could try to diversify your funding into the future, the pros and cons of each, and how you might get started. So this was a while ago, but some of you may remember or have heard of this. We used to have these things called events, where people would physically leave their houses and go somewhere else to a second location where there were other people doing the same thing. Museums at the time would sometimes use these events to further their programming or raise funds to meet with their donors. They'd sell baked goods or have a raffle. Maybe there was music. Maybe it was outside in the park with vendor booths and activities for children. Sometimes alcohol was sold and people would eat and drink together. This was considered normal, and these events provided a comfortable revenue stream for many museums. But some indeterminate number of months ago, society was met with a big old spiky case of force majeure, and we've been baking bread and singing sea shanties ever since. Every comfortable revenue stream we'd come to expect was on shaky ground. Events? Cancelled. Admission? Can't. You're closed. Membership? To a locked building? Gift shop? Oh, no, that's run by volunteers. We can't put them at risk. Grants? Still there for now. But what if the government cuts the budget or people stop buying lottery tickets? Sponsorship? That business is closed too. Can you really blame them for cutting you off when they can't even afford their staff? Donors? Some of them are doing really well, but others are having a tough time. Are you confident that you know what to switch? What are you going to do to thank them? To build relationships or solicit? Donation box at the entrance? Who carries cash anymore? Gross. Endowment money? Oh no, we can't pay that out meaningfully. The markets have tanked. Just about anything you might have done for revenues in the before times got messed with in some fashion, and so people have had to come up with clever solutions to keep afloat while either closed or in otherwise reduced capacity. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some of the good examples I've seen of ways organizations have adjusted their event models to safer formats, whether they be online or otherwise compliant. Lots of good examples here. People took a tough time and built some great opportunities out of a challenge to their existing methods. Some of these things are likely to continue into the future now that people have put in the time to learn how. Duly note, for some of the things I'm going to mention, your organization must be a registered charity. You cannot get a charitable lottery license or issue charitable tax receipts for donations if you are not a registered charity. You'll know if you're a charity because you fill a T3010 form for the government every year. You can, of course, receive money from people just the same, but if you're not a registered charity, the government has not officially deemed you a worthy thing that people can pay money to in lieu of paying their taxes, and so you cannot provide a tax receipt. You also need charitable status to receive certain grant funding, etc. I'll address some of what you do and don't need it for a bit more as we go. One of the more popular options these days is the 50-50 or other raffle. It's pretty straightforward to run a 50-50 online these days, as there are lottery management companies you can use like Echo Lotto or Raffle Box. I've worked with one of these, and the process was very smooth. I know they've done it to success in Val-Marie and other places as well. They have a site that manages the raffle and ways to take the money and make the draw. You do have to have a bank account that can hold the raffle money until it's cleared to you, and you do need to be a registered charity and using the money for approved purposes. whether it's one of the things on their pre-approved list or something they have to approve for you. But the management company will tell you exactly what to put in the field for the charitable lottery license application and other forms that need filling, which is nice. We've done those before for our own raffles, and it's like, what does this mean? What's this for? What are they talking about? But they just say, no, it's this, 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 this. Makes the process really smooth and quick. They take a cut, but when it's maybe an hour of work and the rest is promotion, it's pretty smooth. You can, of course, find ways to do these things yourself as well, but you need to talk to SLGA regardless. One fun note also is that SLGA will pay out additional money to your cause after the raffle is over. That's part of how the charitable lottery license works. It'll help a bit to offset some of the cost of having it managed. Another thing that'll be deeply useful for you is the ability to take payments online through your website or otherwise. If you don't have a website, you'll probably want to get a website. Payment processors are pretty straightforward, so you can use multiple if you want. In Moostar, we use both PayPal and Stripe on our website, and personally, I use Square as they allowed you to take card payments. It's pretty quick to set up, especially if you use a service like Squarespace for your website that has commerce tools built in. We didn't even have this option before the pandemic, but now we use it for everything and it works really well. You can use this to take donations or to sell memberships, gift shop items, classes, programs, etc., and to sell tickets for some of the things I'm about to describe. One fun option is to run a trivia night. You can sell tickets ahead of time and it works smoothly. There are dedicated trivia platforms that can do these things extra smoothly for large groups, so it's actually pretty effective for events with a reasonable number of participants to just provide a Zoom link to the times that sign up. You can prepare your questions on a PowerPoint, share screen in the Zoom meeting, and read them out as you go, and then prepare a Google form to collect the answers. People submit their responses to the questions as you read them, and then they populate in a spreadsheet for you to mark. You can offer prizes or simply glory, do it as a one-off or a regular thing, even a tournament, general topics or those focused on your museum. It works well. They watch you and talk smack in the chat. It's a great experience for everyone. The only real expense of it is your time and a paid Zoom account that you might have anyway at this point. Another fun thing you can do is turn a room of your museum into an escape room. There's admittedly a bit of a learning curve to knowing how these are made, with a series of puzzles leading into each other, a mildly coherent story, good theming, etc. But it's possible to partner with a local escape room business to put one together if you aren't comfortable in your ability to do it. This works for a lot of reasons because it can be used to animate an ancillary space in your museum. It can be done physically on site or online, can be used to tell a real or folklore story, and can involve fun thematic puzzles. The North Battleford WDM has one, the Calgary Zoo has ones that cover the whole grounds, the Deafin Bunker in Ottawa has one over a whole floor, etc. This works well in situations like this because you can either do it physically for a bubble group left alone in a space kept separate from the rest and monitored with surveillance you might already have, or there are ways to do it online. Online, you can run anywhere along a spectrum between live avatar rooms and point-and-click adventure style. In a live avatar room, someone from your museum is on site with a phone or something, and they're in a Zoom meeting with the participants that bought their ticket ahead of time. The people in the Zoom meeting tell your person what to do in the room. Some of the fun of it tends to be that the avatar makes a big scene out of doing exactly what they were told, even if it's clearly not what they meant, etc. The advantage of this over a physical room in a museum is also that your staff person won't touch something they aren't supposed to, so you don't have to fully visitor-proof a room you do online. That person follows instructions and completes the room entirely through the camera. The other end of the spectrum is to use a platform like Telescape to create a fully online experience that's just sort of made out of images, videos, sound, and 360 photos in your space. Nobody needs to be active on your end. The group just signs up and plays through it. An advantage of this fully online format also is that if your museum is a bit remote and your Wi-Fi isn't great, you aren't contending with losing connection in a Zoom meeting because the whole thing is on Telescape's server. What I encounter most often playing online ones is a hybrid format where you have a live avatar in the room, but they use Telescape to manage the player's inventory, sending them pictures of puzzles and spaces so they have a better view than your staffer's shaky cam, or having certain puzzles that need both a live view and the online view. This is the format my roommates and I used to create a hybrid online room for some friends' bachelor party. We set the space up in our basement and sent someone down as a meat puppet, but we kept their inventory and puzzle views on Telescape, unlocking the steps as they proceeded through the room. I'd never used Telescope from that end before, but their tutorial video at the start taught me everything I needed, and it went well. Their model is that you're charged some amount per run of the room. You don't spend runs for building or testing, so the initial investment is only one of time and effort. You get 10 runs for free for starting your account, and then you can buy additional runs as the requests come in. So if it doesn't work out quite how you hoped, you're not stuck in some sort of subscription or something. You can buy them in reasonable numbers as you need them. The bread and butter of your extended fundraising content will probably be live streams and video content. You'll of course do your regular online content for free, or the usual amounts. Say you have your artist talks or lectures or tours, etc. You want to keep barriers low. But we run paid things like art classes over Zoom, and it's effective. You can also use this not as monetized content, but as stewardship. Say it's a vault tour where you only give the link to your donors or members, or a Zoom book club or something. Nota bene, when doing a Zoom book club, find out how long the book is before you tell everyone, or you'll be scrambling to read 1,000 pages about Elaine de Kooning before the meeting. One of the things you can do just as content is to stream or build content around things that happen anyway. There are Twitch channels for the otters at the Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue, various tanks at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. You can even watch the owl at the Saskatchewan Science Center. One of my favorite things was a food enrichment thing they did at the Calgary Zoo called Bugs and Bouquets. Each day coming up to Valentine's Day, you could make a donation and either dedicate a bouquet of vegetables to someone you love or name a bug after your ex. And they would stream a keeper feeding the vegetables to hippos or something and answering chat questions about the animal. If you want to do this, there are lots of different options like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, etc. And you can stream to just one of them or to multiple at a time with something like StreamYard or OBS. There are just as many ways to monetize this. If you offer good free content, you can provide the option to donate through your website or through Facebook, Stream Elements, Streamlabs, YouTube, or the Twitch bits or subscription systems. You can encourage a recurring donation through providing bonus content, either again through your website or through Patreon, YouTube channel membership, etc. Don't do this unless you're confident you can keep up a steady amount of additional content. You can also have sort of one-off event streams. Say you want to run something all day on Saturday and cycle between talks, local musicians, history content, whatever, much like a traditional telethon, you can do this. And you can use a platform like Tiltify to facilitate it. For something like that, you could have it just be for you or rope in another local charity to help in the work and share in the money. There are all kinds of things you could do for something like that. One example I've thought of is a gramathon, where you set up at a local senior home or something and residents come to the camera and tell their best stories. The audience all listens to the great stories and can respond and ask questions in chat, making for an informal environment with people engaging each other. But in the end, your museum gets a recording of all these great stories for your oral history collection. The audience gets to learn about history and build a bit of a parasocial relationship with these people who've been stuck up the hill for months wanting some sort of interaction. Another thing I've seen work well is auctions. Whether silent or live on Zoom, selling auction prizes works well. If you can get prizes donated or purchased for a low amount, you can increase the price. You can use a proper auction platform or just a Facebook comment sort of arrangement. This simple format has been effective for the Kindersley Museum and the annual Maverick School Coffee House in Swift Current, for example. Currently, the Saskatoon Zoo Society is running an auction through Tiny Roar. It does a good job of following the strategy of having a prize for every sort of interest, which you should always strive for. Some of the best prizes in any auction are, of course, hard to replicate experiences that may be cheap to provide, even though they're worth a lot to people. The prize I'm thinking of in this case is, of course, the package where you get to meet the grizzly bears. Not hard for them to do, but cool and exclusive. There are lots of things that fit that bill. Invite someone from the city to ride on a piece of antique farm equipment. Your volunteer may have been running that anyway, but now it's a cool prize. Blacksmithing lessons in your heritage village. You needed to encourage people to learn that skill anyway, but now they've paid you for it. You can also consider things that are rare, but your donors or sponsors could provide. We had an auction at the gala back at the Winnipeg Symphony. Some of the prizes our donors gave us because they had them handy: a helicopter tour to see polar bears in Churchill, a tour of a local brewery, a round of golf, elaborate meals at local restaurants, a yard cleanup, season tickets to the ballet and theater, flights, vacations, jets tickets, a Via Rail pass, the opportunity to ride a horse in the Cavalia show, all kinds of crazy stuff because of the partnerships they have in the community. Now, I'll pause briefly here to put on my Carfax hat and talk about art prizes. Auctioning an artwork is risky, especially for professionals at a certain level. If you must auction an artwork, start the bidding at the real price of the work. Previous sale prices of artworks affect the appraisal value of their works in the future. Successful artists have had their careers entirely tanked because of bad auction prices. In the prairies, there have been cases where an artist was popular with oil companies, but then oil tanked, and their works all got auctioned at once by people scrambling for cash and sold for way below value, flooding the market and nuking the price. If you've got an artwork, you're better off raffling it, and for that matter, don't ask the artist to donate. If your friends think an offer and you could take it, that's fine. But if you want to raffle it, you're better off asking a donor or sponsor to buy the artwork from the artist at its proper value, and then that person donates it to you instead. Artists get enough devaluation from other sources that they needn't get it from us too. Anyway, rant over. Another easy thing you can do is offer gift shop projects for sale online. As I say, a lot of website building services offer a commerce package of some sort, and you can sell gift shop items online, offering shipping or curbside pickup. You can also have market events spaced around your facility with limited attendance within guidelines. Swift Current Museum has had a few of these successfully. You can charge some amount to the vendors or an entry fee to the building, or just take the opportunity to sell some of your own wares as well. You can also make hay while the sun shines and sell situationally appropriate branded merch. As you can see, I formed a bit of a collection. I've got Swift Current Museum, Raremi my modern cook over my mask, and nice Scotty mask from the RSM, both Christmas and non-Christmas from Vancouver Aquarium, 3-pack from the Field Museum, one from the Motor Museum that's a sign from the Spanish flu, and a particular prize, this one from the New York Transit Museum that doesn't even ship to Canada. It needed to be funneled through a contact in New York. You can also do some things outside and distant during the safer times. Something I've seen around is an artist mini golf. Get donors or sponsors to pay to commission an artist to make functional site-specific sculptures that operate as mini golf holes. Then people book in with their bubble and play around. Once you have the holes, the operating costs are minimal, but people are comfortable paying for the experience. And of course, you can combine some of these things together to create a virtual gala of sorts. One of the aforementioned live streams with talks and performances and perhaps an auction, but maybe with a food kit you pick up or a code for delivery. The Science Center did this with their fantasy food event. You got a Science Center swag bag and a meal from a local restaurant. There's trivia, live music, a 50-50, and a science demonstration, all safely at home. So that's events. There are, of course, lots of options for events that you can hold, even if you can't operate them in a traditional physical sense. But the other thing to remember is that your options extend beyond having events at all. There's a whole variety of options available to you, and I'll rush through a few of them now. This is how we like to break down the different types of private fundraising. It's arranged like this in these boxes in terms of who the money comes from, individual or corporate or foundation sort of thing. How much money you're talking about from the the lower amounts to the higher amounts, and how much solicitation it requires. There's sort of is a line where you need the chair of your board or your executive director or someone sort of quote unquote important to personally solicit these things. But here in the middle is the funky one we've been talking about all morning so far, events. Because you see, it involves both your individuals and your corporates, and the line of solicitation runs right through it. This is because events involve everybody, and all your mucky mucks need to be there. But the box for it is down here, because they also don't raise a whole lot of money compared to their costs. There will always be a place for events because they change up your offering. They often draw people who aren't your base or don't even know you exist. See Park Art, our annual art show that's right at our front door, and yet there are people who go every year that don't know that we're running it or that we're even down there. This is partly a failure of branding, but partly an example of events casting a slightly different net from your regular programming. And depending on the event, you can spin it to be as much about donor stewardship as it is about raising the money, but they're not the most reliable or efficient way to go about it. Say you've got a bake sale, you're pouring all this time and personal money into putting together something that then only brings in like $4 at a time from a bunch of people who all have to be lured in. Everybody's there, they all have to do work, and you're barely better off than you would have been if people had just donated the amount they spent on ingredients and volunteered on regular museum work for the same amount of time. Bigger scale, say you had a gala, you'd have all hands on deck, all your staff, all your board, volunteers, maybe some artists or important local figures. You've invited all your donors and your NP and whatever people from the businesses that sponsor you. Everybody's at full sprint soliciting and doing advocacy and also making sure the food comes out. It's exhausting. People have been working on it for weeks or months. A decent amount of gross revenue comes in, but the cost per dollar raised is very high. It's a little more valuable if you consider it an opportunity to work with your donors because they will enjoy it. That's the thing. Now, the key thing to note here about the rest of the stuff I'm going to talk about is that the best fundraising program is the one you can commit to. Much of this is long game kind of work, and even some of the biggest shops don't commit equal effort to every aspect of fundraising, rather speccing into a mix of what their staff does best and what their audiences respond to. In the end, you may have found that already, but if you can find ways to do a few more things sustainably, it's a good plan for a safety net. Also, the ongoing advantages of doing things that work online include the fact that you can tap a key audience you don't always get a chance to talk to on a normal day, the expats. People move, it's a thing. And sometimes they might have grown up in your town or spent some time there otherwise, and they have good memories and want to help preserve its history. Maybe they took off to make money in the big city, but they'll definitely toss a few bucks back home to that place they remember as having great field trips or visiting with their grandpa, or maybe they like riding the train or whatever, and they want to preserve that. You can be in contact with them online. They can attend your online content even if they won't be in town until the next family reunion. In my case, I was a repeat donor to the Vancouver Aquarium before they got bought out because my family was gifted a membership at a formative time in my life, and we went there pretty regularly. I've been there or even to Vancouver at all, a grand total of once in the 25 years since we moved. But I pitched in because they were important to me and I could do it online. That could be you. Now, key to all these things is building relationships and appealing to what people care about. You can handle the right side of the boxes reasonably well because businesses in a lot of cases have taken enough buzzwordy marketing classes that they will outright publish their values, brand identity, and the kind of things they officially care about, taking one of the steps out of your prospecting work. This is a little harder to do with small local businesses, but in the case of them, you can sort of treat them as individuals because you probably know them. And as I say, individual people have values too. You'll be able to make sense of them and their interests when you get to know them. But you can also sort of guess, because people tend to fall into a few categories for why they donate if you can consider that in your efforts. You've got your communitarians, who are common and make their donations because they want to make the community better and know you're an important part of that. Then there are the altruists that give because they feel they morally have to, and they're the ones who will often choose to remain anonymous, that they just feel it's a good thing to do. There's repayers, may have benefited from you in the past and want to support you specifically, or museums in general, for the work in bringing their life to where it was so far. The socialites, that give for the benefit of activities with friends and will often all give together in groups of friends. Investors, they're all about the tax benefits. They'll also usually be interested in your organizational efficiencies. Devouts, well, most of their giving is religious in nature, but they might give if your museum is about their religion, kind of a specific circumstance. And then, of course, the dynasts have been wealthy for generations and are deeply familiar with giving, as the rather broken system of philanthropy was built to benefit them. You can also get a bit more of an idea of people's income range, values, and interests on average using an analytic system like the Environics Prism system that uses census data, among other things, to categorize every residential postal code in the country by its demographic cohorts. My house, for example, is in category 7, the mature and secure. It's empty nesters that are over 55 and watch golf on TV. This doesn't really apply to our house of 5 millennials, but we do fit with attend symphony concerts, are university educated, and have prescription drug benefits. The neighbor across the way is retired and replaced his lawn with turf. The one next door turned his yard into a putting green. It's not really wrong. Anyway, your best chance is to get to know people, but they do have ways to cheat a little and cast a wide net. Now, this may not have been what everybody expected, but it was certainly true for me and a lot of people. This was actually a good time for donations. Some people were in trouble, yes, but so were organizations. People who weren't hit particularly hard donated more than usual to help their favorite organizations survive. I personally donated to 7 organizations compared to 2 the previous year, and I was not alone. Charitable giving increased by 7.5% in Canada in 2020 over the previous year. This is it's interesting because donor retention numbers went down because some of the people who might have given normally didn't, but new donors went way up because there were people seeing the dire straits of their local organizations, and they did. So because others were sitting on income that they suddenly didn't have to spend on commuting or travel or going out, so they stepped up. And if you make the effort to build these relationships, and you can, and remove the barriers to donating, it can pay off in circumstances like this. So over here at the bottom, we have the low-end direct response fundraising. This is casting a wide net at the expense of personal solicitation. This includes posting on your social media for donations. It includes sending bulk mail, putting ads in local media, etc. You're not talking to people personally, but generally. It doesn't take solicitation. It can just sort of be thrown into the void, and you hope that people give you money. A donation box kind of works like this too. It doesn't give you a lot, but that doesn't matter. It didn't take you a lot of work either. Thank them for your donation and remember that they exist. If you didn't know them before, maybe you should. And you get a little further up and you get into the donors that are starting to give more. They might do it every year or monthly if that's their thing. And you know who they are. You've got a relationship of some kind. They might do it themselves, or you might remind them when their usual donation is coming. Thank them for the donation as usual. A card, perhaps a call, personal touch. They might be invited to your special curators preview talks, where they can hear about the research coming down the pipeline for an exhibition next year. And you get into the major giving. These donations are significant, and you need to have built a significant relationship with them. Because maybe they've been donating and involved in your stuff for a while, and you know they've got means and care about your mission. You've been doing stewardship stuff with them for a while, and they might have a special interest in mind. With them, you work toward making an ask for a specific amount. You take small steps. They call it moves management in building the relationship, going closer. Every call, every note, every time they come to the museum and you talk to them about what they care about, it's a step. And because this might be a transformative gift for your organization that allows you to do something significant, and it may be transformative for them as well. Because making the ask for a major gift is like proposing marriage. If you don't already know the answer, you're asking too soon. And when they say yes, it's a celebration for both of you. You can give them a special experience to thank them too, so long as it doesn't cost more than $75. Just like the Winnipeg New Music Festival is nearly as much Michael Nesbitt's baby as it is the WSO's. Once you've got a donor to take that much psychic ownership of your organization, you're in a great place. And I will put it in the chat because I don't want to talk about it right now. An article I wrote last year about making asks and thanking donors. Now, something you may encounter pretty regularly in Saskatchewan is people who have a lot of assets, but not a lot of liquidity. These people may be good prospects for planned giving. One of the options you have when you talk to lawyers and financial planners about estate planning is to make donations to organizations you care about. So it's, you're leaving a legacy. The L in here is legacy giving. Much like with standard gifts, it's an effective way to avoid taxes. You can give cash, but you can give other assets too, which is true for living gifts also. Upon a person's death, their assets are deemed disposed. This means that things like capital gains tax come due the same way as if you'd sold them. This leaves their estate to pay for a farm that might not be used, etc., or they can give that appreciated asset, whether it's a stock, land, a house, whatever, to your registered charity. They can immediately sell it for the current value and use that money for their operations, and no one has to pay capital gains tax on it. It's effective. You can encourage people to leave some sort of gift in their will, even if they can't manage it now. What then is usually done is when they've done this, you thank them and treat them as a VIP for the rest of their life. Lots of organizations have this legacy circle concept, laden with all kinds of great donor stewardship perks for no money down. Now over here on the corporate side, you build different kinds of relationships. These are all business. It's not the same mindset as a donation. This is an arrangement between you and the business that benefits both parties. The size of that arrangement corresponds to the amount of money. You don't need to be a charity to receive sponsorship money because it's more like a payment for a really weird service. When you're over on the side of the boxes, you'll also want to be in contact with the Business Arts Fest program. Not only do they provide you with training opportunities, but they provide you with matching funds for securing new sponsorships. So it's a pretty solid investment if you're going to do this work anyway. But down here are fairly low commitment arrangements. A business gives you some food for your event and you whack up their logo. The radio station runs a free ad and they're on the poster. Usually smaller in-kind stuff, simple arrangements. Then moving up the list, you have your bigger arrangements. They might pay for your major event or your education program or something significant. In return, they're featured everywhere. Their employees get art classes. They can try your cool new escape room ahead of the general public, and they can get your exclusive business for the products they sell. Something you buy a lot of from there already? Great plan. Showing up on a doorstep you've never darkened with a plan nobody's expecting? I'm skeptical. And at the top of the pile, you could sell naming rights to your facility or spaces inside it. Man Art Gallery, Nutrient Wonder Hub, the Tellus World of Science in Edmonton. This should always be on a term contract. They can renew it if they want, but it needs to be temporary and contain escape clauses if you need to distance yourself. You can't be the Enbridge Museum of Flaxcomb forever because they gave you $10,000 once. But you will want it to be an organization that really wants a presence in the community. You can also name a facility or space for a major personal donation, so that's a little more likely to be in perpetuity, though not always. Ramey Modern, for example, or the Shumiatre Theater at, well, any of the facilities that contains the Shumiatre Theater at this point. It's several. So all these things in the second half are rendered harder to do in a traditional way when you can't meet in person. Personal touches like thank you notes, donor calls, etc. become very important, as does doing online stewardship like some of the online event content I mentioned. Zoom meetings are good, though it's hard to beat talking to your donor as you walk through the museum. It's all very doable, but it's different. Times like this are good for prospect research, finding potential donors in your database or community, potential sponsors among local businesses, learning about different demographics in your audience and how best to appeal to them, and keeping in touch with your existing audience. It's all about building the relationships that'll carry you through tough times. Thanks for having me today. It's been good. If you've got questions, I can answer them now, or here's my email if something comes to you later. I also know of some resources for just about any of the things I mentioned.
Thanks so much, Vincent. That was really a really great presentation. Yeah, we'll definitely we have some time here for questions. If anybody wants to unmute yourself, please go ahead and you can ask your question that way, or you can type it in the chat, however you'd prefer. Vincent, if you want to send me any of the resources that you have, I'd be happy to include them when we post the recording of the chat too.
Sure, that'd be good. I mean, you might even have some of the books in your library, so that'd be helpful too.
Quite possibly. And if not, maybe we should get them. Awesome. Well, there's definitely still time to ask your questions here, but just in the meantime, I'm going to pass it over to Dan Halbro, and he's going to talk about what's going to happen at the next community chat here.
All right, thanks, Sam. On the 23rd, our community chat's going to be a symposium about tangible and intangible cultural heritage. So it'll be looking at different ways that different organizations have connected artifacts with living heritage activities, engaged with intangible cultural heritage, and what that might mean for museums. So our presenters are going to be Kristen Catherwood from the Heritage Saskatchewan. She's an intangible cultural heritage development person there. Claire Thompson, a historian from Wood Mountain. Joey Donnelly at the Southwest Newcomer Welcome Center in Swift Current. And Wendy Peart from the Dunlop Art Gallery here in Regina. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I think they all have a lot of great stuff to say, and I hope to see you there on the 23rd at 10 a.m.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Not really seeing any questions come through, just lots of good feedback for your presentation, Vincent. So thank you for that. And yeah, if feel free, I think Vincent's very open to receiving any questions afterwards. So please do, if something comes up after we're ended the session, reach out to him. I'm sure that's no problem. And yeah, with that, I think we'll probably wrap up and you can go on with your day. Have a great week. And yeah, definitely hope to see you at the next community chat with the ICH symposium. It's going to be a good one. So put it in your calendars. All right. Thanks, everybody.